So, David, it's really great to have you with us this time, and a big thank you for taking time out to come and talk to us. David Whitehead of the Way of the Truth Warrior.com. You can find out more about him if you haven't already. There are plentiful interviews on the YouTube channel. Which is your YouTube channel, David?
YouTube channel is Sensei Dave 82. So it's SENSEIDAVE 82. But if you go to YouTube and you just type in Truth Warrior, you'll definitely find it.
Very good, very good. So I'm pretty sure that the audience with us here are going to be reasonably familiar with your work. And I'm also sure that they'll have an interpretation of the warrior spirit, because we have that as our landing page at the Full Circle Project. But I'd really like to get your perspective of what the warrior spirit is all about, David. So perhaps we could start there and see where we go with that.
Well, thank you, first of all, Louise, for having me on and thinking of me and for featuring this particular work. I actually really was moved by the work that you guys are doing at the Full Circle Project, and noticing that you're featuring this philosophy of the warrior and the warrior spirit in its truest sense. And we're going to kind of go through some definitions to give people some ideas to consider when it comes to this. But yeah, I just wanted to give a warm thank you for inviting me on and for featuring this work. When it comes to the warrior, my journey with discovering this was found through a lot of adversity in my life. I grew up always very much in a mindset of a lot of fear and anxiety about my environment and what was going on around me. There was a lot of external circumstances that were sort of pushing me in a particular direction, and I didn't have any direction for myself. I felt like I was being guided and pushed, and I didn't feel like I was really going where I wanted to go in life. And I was seeking empowerment. I was seeking some kind of change in my life, and I really wanted to, just clear my head and try to find myself, really. And that was really a process that started at an early age with me and continues right up to the present day. And it was through viewing some information I came across. I remember being a youngster, and we were at the library as a family, and I went into the history section, and I stumbled across some books that were, martial art books. Some of the books were sort of showing you all the different techniques of how to do different martial art moves and whatnot. But there was also books on the philosophy and the history of martial arts. And I was instantly attracted to it, and I started reading about it, and it was completely different than anything I had seen. Now, I was young, so I hadn't seen a lot. But, I grew up watching television shows like Ninja Turtles and all of that, and I feel like, it didn't really do it full justice compared to what I started reading when it came to the philosophy of the martial arts, and the martial arts being something that really embodies a holistic perspective of warriorship, And so it forced me to start looking up and redefining my definitions and going on this journey of seeking empowerment, seeking out the real meaning behind martial arts and trying to implement it into my life. And funny thing, when you go to the dictionary and you look up the word warrior, it's going to give you two definitions. And I find it rather interesting that it's not really that clear. The first definition they'll give you about what a warrior is a warrior is a brave or experienced soldier or fighter. And that's pretty topical. It's not really that detailed, and it doesn't really give you a deep insight into what true warriorship is. So they kind of keep it very bland. And I find it kind of funny that the second definition that you'll find if you go to like dictionary.com or whatever is that the warrior is also a pose in yoga. So you basically get, so it's a brave or experienced soldier or fighter, or it's some yoga pose. And that's about it. That's about usually what people think of when they think of a warrior. They think of some soldier going off to war. They think of brutal invasions. They think of empire expansion, etc. But when I started really looking into the actual warrior traditions, I mean, this is universal. You can go and study the warrior tradition coming out of India, studying the Sikh tradition. You can go into the Asian continent. You can study, the history of China, Japan, and look at the different martial arts that were born out of the various philosophies that came out of those areas. You can go to Africa, South Africa. You can go to North America and study, the Cherokee and the native Aboriginal peoples. You can go all over the world and you will find this concept of warriorship. And I find it interesting that it's a lot more detailed than just how to defend yourself physically or how to defend your tribe or how to be effective in war. A lot of the information contained in the writings about warriorship in these cultures has to do with the philosophy and the moral code of ethics that come with warriorship. And so they really discuss the warrior spirit, the spirit of fortitude, the spirit of courage, the spirit of shattering illusion and being very grounded and rooted, the spirit of communing with nature, the spirit of understanding one's true nature and how that actually coincides and connects symbiotically with the natural world, understanding the importance of cultivation and art and study. And it's funny, when I trained martial arts my whole life, and when I achieved my black belt and was given the status of a sensei. The sensei title wasn't just something that meant teacher. It actually had 3 meanings to it that you had to sort of live up to. And what it really means is that you're to be a teacher, a scholar, and a warrior. And so it's really emphasizing that, as a scholar, you're always a student in life. You're always seeking more knowledge. You're always seeking to grow and learn and continue on that journey of expressing more of yourself and accessing your full potential. And then you're also there to teach others. You're there to pay it forward. The knowledge and experience that you gain in life, you are to pass on to other people that will definitely be able to utilize that knowledge and information. And then to be a warrior. And this is always the discussion that comes up. Well, what does it mean to be a warrior? And when you read a lot of the journals and the diaries of some of these different samurais, and I've gone through so much literature just kind of trying to find out, what is this warrior? What's it all about? It's true, everybody has their take on it, but it really does come down to 4 concepts. And that is honor, justice, obligation, and courage. And those are just 4 words that really I felt I could boil it down and say, all right, this is really what we're talking about when we're looking at this warrior as sort of an archetype of human consciousness. And by archetype, I mean this is an element of our consciousness as human beings that we all have somewhere deep inside of us. We do all have courage somewhere inside of us. It's just a matter of whether or not we're going to access it and let it grow and foster it. And we do have a sense of justice, and justice, just to keep it simple, is just discussing what is right versus what is wrong. A good, innate understanding of what is right versus what is wrong. And so this kind of gets into natural law and understanding the concepts of morality and the various virtues that are expressed throughout the warrior tradition. And then obligation to what? Well, if you read some literature on warriorship, you can see that there's a lot of concepts in there that are historically based. So if you look at the samurai tradition, they would say they have an obligation to serve their lord or their master or their king or their emperor. And you see this very strong throughout the warrior tradition, because we know that throughout history, as various kings and rulers came to power, they wanted to expand their empire. And in order to expand their empire or to spread some kind of religion or whatever, they needed warriors, they needed soldiers to go out and serve their cause for them. So in that sense, the warrior kind of got hijacked, because to me, the warrior was something that stood separate from just serving blindly some master or some ruler that could be definitely a malignant force in that civilization. So there would be the separation that happened between, kind of like the difference between a warrior and a soldier being somebody that is obligated to serve without using their critical thinking, without using their intuition, but to just blindly serve, to blindly follow orders, to blindly go out and, conquer other nations or take over land or do whatever under orders, without really working from that innate intelligence, which is what I've always ascribed with a true warrior. So obligation, in the sense that I'm talking about, in the way that I'm defining the warrior here, is an obligation to serve that which is, an obligation to serve truth, an obligation to always reflect yourself and express yourself from your best qualities. So you have an obligation to serve your truest self. You have an obligation to uphold nature in its right form. You have an obligation to stand for those that can't stand for themselves, etc. So the obligation in this definition is not referring to just serving somebody else blindly, which is what people typically think of when they think of warriors. But there's another side to the warrior that has really been lost throughout history, and this is what I'm trying to bring forward again. So obligation is obligation to the truth. And then courage. Courage is that one element that people would probably automatically ascribe to the warrior. And it's correct, because that's really what this gets down to. You need to have courage if you're going to go on the path of knowledge, or if you're going to go on the path of seeking any kind of information or knowledge in your life, or if you're trying to learn about the world around you. It can be scary. It can be scary. You're going to meet a lot of opposition. You're going to have people that are going to try to dissuade you from following your heart and following your intuition and following the path that you feel is right for you. And so you're going to have actually probably nothing but opposition when you go on that path. And you're going to have, I feel like the world is sort of set up, especially in our modern society today, it's set up to dissuade you from being the truest self, to dissuade you from expressing yourself on an individual level, and to just be absorbed into the collective mind, or as Edward Bernays would have called it, the public mind. And this is something that is a false construct. This is something that can easily be manipulated by, the media or the powers that be, and we've seen this constantly throughout history. So the warrior concept is really trying to encourage you, this philosophy is trying to encourage you to embark on your own path, to seek truth and understanding and enlightenment through your own means, where you're not trying to follow some guru, you're not trying to follow some higher authority, you're not just reading something and repeating it blindly. You are there to try to have an authentic experience rooted in the truth, rooted in something that is real and authentic. So honor, justice, obligation, and courage are really what define the warrior. And then I just wanted to give a couple points on some beautiful ideas that came out of the Sikh warrior tradition that I feel really do a good job of redefining what a warrior is. So this is coming out of the Sikh tradition. They talk about 9 tenets of what they call the code of the warrior. So they go like this. They say a true warrior is humble and gentle. A true warrior has no arrogance and bears no malice, even to his enemies. A true warrior recognizes himself as an instrument of the universal spirit. A true warrior will follow and serve the hukam, which is the natural order of the universal spirit. A true warrior seeks justice, freedom, and protection for all beings, recognizing the importance of all creation and nature. A true warrior is ready and determined to stand up for justice, combating injustice in a world in word and in action. A true warrior is a weapon of the universal spirit. The one who recognizes himself as such realizes all inner self-identity merged with the flow of nature's law, attaining the mental and physical powers of a warrior. A true warrior fights with his mind before fighting with a sword. A true warrior is a saint and a warrior integrated into one. So this was a mantra that they would repeat because it was there to help them remember why they were involved in this study of warriorship. It wasn't just about learning how to conquer others. It wasn't based in some kind of false ego or pride. It wasn't based in only an approach to just overall physical health, although that's an amazing aspect of this. It was a holistic approach to a way of life, a way of viewing the world, a deep understanding of natural law and a sense of true justice. And then, of course, we always look at warrior as somebody who stands for something. So they would be the ones that stood for justice. They stood as protectors for that justice and for that peace. They weren't out there seeking violence. They weren't out there seeking conflict. They were simply there as a mechanism, almost like an immune system response to something that was, coming in to, take over the area, to steal somebody's sovereignty or whatever. And it was there to stand up against that. So I've boiled this all down to how can we implement this in our personal lives? How can we, not everybody's going to go out there and maybe join martial arts and start practicing that, but and I do recommend people get involved in some kind of, physical activity or training. But if they don't want to do that, how can they take this into their personal life? And I feel like really just understanding this as a mindset, as a philosophy, as a method of pursuing knowledge is really where we can start with people, so that we can encourage them to look deeper into not just some field of information. It's not like this is some kind of religion or anything like that, but really it's trying to encourage you to look deeper into yourself, look deeper at what's going on in the world around you, and then how can we respond? And this is really what this philosophy is about, and this is where this idea was born.
Wow, that's all beautiful and huge topic. It's a huge topic. It's a definitely holistic topic, because it seems to cover and not only touch on everything, all those things you've mentioned, but it's the depth that it carries that always strikes me as so fundamental to living life fully. These are things that, don't you think, David, if only we could introduce them at an earlier age into our schools, so that they became the teachings, as indeed I think you find everywhere, tribal teachings, whether they're termed warrior or otherwise, their virtues, their values, their true morals, which of course are not lost, but certainly I think forgotten and undervalued. Don't you think introducing them to our children would be a good place to start? In addition to what you've suggested.
Yes, for sure. I mean, the children, I work with children regularly, and specifically using martial arts, with this particular idea behind it. Not most martial arts today, sadly, especially here in the West, has been watered down so much, has become a focus in, just what's the most effective way to dismember somebody or like finish off somebody in a fight, or it's become highly competitive. And not that there's anything wrong with studying those things, and if people want to get involved in that side of the martial arts, but what's missing is the other component, which is what I felt separated just the typical brute soldier from a warrior class. A warrior class was, I guess if you're a Star Wars fan, you'd look at it like the Jedi class, somebody that was not just there to stand up and protect truth and justice, but somebody that was empowered in their own lives, somebody that was a leader, somebody that embodied these virtues. In the samurai tradition, they have 7 virtues that they follow. In some traditions, it's 9 virtues. Either way, you see that sort of moral code embedded in this warrior philosophy, and it's not lost, but it's definitely forgotten, and it would definitely serve our children well to be raising them up and teaching them these things, teaching them survival skills, teaching them how to be self-reliant, how to be confident, how to work efficiently and effectively with others, how to tackle obstacles, how to approach obstacles as an exciting challenge and not something that they should be afraid of or they should turn away from. I feel like in school today, they're not really ingraining these kids with a backbone. They're not giving them that. There's nothing teaching them that level of self-confidence and self-knowledge. It's just pure memorization of facts and information. And you can only go so far with that. It's an imbalanced way of teaching. And I think kids, when I work with kids, I don't have to explain it too much. They already get it. I find that very interesting. They already understand these concepts. When I talk to them about this and I ask you, does this make sense to you? Does it make sense to you that if you don't want that action to be done against you, that you shouldn't be doing that action towards another person? It's the old golden rule concept, right? And kids do understand that. I remember understanding it as when I was young, and the kids that I talk to, they understand it. It's just that there's nothing reinforcing it. There's nothing in our pop culture that's making it cool, to be on that wavelength. It's actually cooler to be immoral or amoral, or to not to work against the best interest of others. If you look at the kind of pop culture we have today, it's really just, it's shocking what our kids are being exposed to. And I think it's linking into a lot of the psychological disorders we're seeing pop up. I mean, if you look at the rates of increase of childhood depression, childhood disorders of all types, whether they're spectrum disorders or autism or even just obesity, type 2 diabetes, cancer, degenerative disease. On all levels, it seems like the health of our children is suffering. And I actually did a 3-part aspect within my presentation where I was looking at the mind, body, spirit principle, which is another very deep principle within the warrior tradition. And I was applying it specifically to our children and saying, okay, in our society today, especially here in the West, do we feel like the mental state of our children, by and large, is healthy? And I gave some examples of how clearly it's not. And I did the same thing with the body. How's the health and nutrition of our kids? And how's the influence over their minds when it comes to health? Are they being influenced, by and large, by school, the media, their parents, and everybody around them, that about what kind of foods they should be eating, about what kind of, how important it is to have a healthy lifestyle and how that contributes to so many things. And clearly the answer to that is no, sadly. We don't have that real influence that's there. It's hard to find. And then also the spirit. Where's the spirit of our kids? Look at this epidemic of bullying that we see happening. I'm a parent, so I got my ear to the ground to this. And I don't feel like bullying is like some kind of condition that kids have. They're diagnosing kids with like bullying disorders and things like that. It's unbelievable. The truth is that these kids that are out there doing these bullying actions they are themselves lacking confidence. So I've worked with kids in my practice where I've had kids come in who are being bullied regularly. They got their eyes to the ground. They have zero confidence. And I brought them up to a point where they're, done a 360-degree turn. And then I've worked with kids that are out there bullying and victimizing other kids and have brought them back to a state of equilibrium as well, because we found that these kids are missing. It's like they're deficient in nutrients or something, but they're deficient in the nutrients of understanding these natural principles that are not being taught to our kids. So I've worked with both the bullied and the bullies, and I've been able to bring them to a state of equilibrium using this philosophy and using the physical training that is embodied in martial arts. And I'm able to do that because that was done for me. And now here I am trying to pay it forward. So this would be huge if we were to integrate this into our schooling, or if parents are out there homeschooling their kids, try to find a way to embed this type of training that, kids need to use their bodies. I think we have an overemphasis in our society on just mental energy and absorbing everything on an intellectual level. It's extremely important. If you look at the work of people like Wilhelm Reich and looking at somatic intelligence and bioenergy and organ energy and understanding what your body is, that to move the body, to express your emotions through the body in a healthy way is extremely important. You should not be suppressing those things in the kids. They should find a healthy outlet for those types of emotions as opposed to suppressing them. So I feel like this martial art tradition, it answers the questions in all 3 of those areas. How do we develop a healthy mindset? How do we get rid of limited thinking and limited belief systems? How do we develop a healthy body? Why is that so important to mental health, for example, right? And teaching them the correlations between the mind and body. And then the spiritual component. What is spirit? How do you allow your true spiritual nature to flow through your actions in the world? And how do you get rid of the blockages that are there that are blocking the best parts of you from coming out and expressing themselves? So that's where I think this can really help, is especially working with the kids. But even if, I don't care what age you are or what background you're coming from, you can embody these principles in your life and you will transform completely. I can guarantee you, just because I've seen it so many times, and I've practiced this in my own life as well.
Yes, I can feel it from what you're saying, and it's definitely something that you can embody, which again is the powerful thing, that it's not just something that the brain somehow has to expand in order to contain, let alone actually digest. And there's just so many topics that we could touch on here when you're talking about the health and immunity. And when you were speaking about the bully and the victim, I think, well, this is exactly what we have really in our relationship to those in authority is that we're allowing a lot of bullying to take place, and many of us are still playing the victim because we're not equipped any longer, or we've forgotten how to access these tools. So exactly the same principles and philosophies, I feel, can be applied in all these different areas.
Yes, and that's a great point. When we're looking, I like starting off with this, looking at sort of the micro component where we're looking at the self, we're looking at, the mind, body, spirit. But then the reason we're doing that is to equip somebody with the knowledge of how to then look at what's going on in the macro, what's going on in the world, what's going on socially, politically, in our communities, and, on the bigger scale of things. And even when you're going to look at big cosmic questions, like who am I? Why am I here? Where am I going? What's the nature of the universe? What's the nature of reality, etc. So there's sort of that old quote from Don Juan, which I see on your site, which is incredible. I love this quote. And it says, only as a warrior can one withstand the path of knowledge. And what do they mean by that? Is it mean I have to get up and learn how to shoot my rifle every morning? Do I have to practice swordsmanship in order to understand knowledge? No, he's talking about the character. He's talking about the fortitude aspect, the courage aspect, referencing what it's going to take in order to address the questions that are going to be presented to you throughout your life. And I believe that the questions you're given in life, I remember the questions I had as a kid where I felt like I was lost in some weird island somewhere. I'm like, where am I? How did I get here? What is going on this planet? Like, why is there still so much war and crazy stuff going on? Like, how come this is still happening? Why are people starving? Why are children starving to death on this planet right now? Why is that even happening? There's no way we don't have enough resources. And you start asking those questions and you're wondering, why do these problems keep persisting? And why can't we just solve them? There's been so many brilliant people throughout history, as I've found, that have addressed these problems and have brought forward viable solutions. You just got to study like a Nikola Tesla or a Royal Raymond Rife or a Walter Russell or so many other people I could mention, that would have been bringing forward different solutions towards the energy crisis, towards the way we look at ourselves in the world, even bringing in moral components and whatnot, and true scientific advancement. These people have existed, but yet we haven't heard much from them because it seems like, the big institutionalized organizations, they always get the most press for some reason. Might be something going on behind the scenes there. And we don't hear much press from these guys and these people that have done so much amazing work to bring forward these solutions. So there's just a few examples of when you start asking the bigger questions about the state of the world, how it got to be that way, and what we can do about it, you're going to start coming across warriors that have stood up and have said, hey, I've got an idea of what we could do. And you're going to see that, a lot of times they're sequestered, they're ostracized from their communities, they're ridiculed, sometimes they're even murdered and killed and taken out of the picture entirely, or just, their works are suppressed and we don't really hear about it. So it's up to the individual now that we have access to the internet and to, things like the Full Circle Project where we're collaborating and bringing information forward, we have the ability now to go back and look at things again and to try to look at some actual viable solutions that can help us on the macro level, that can help humanity as a species to move forward and to leave all of these challenges behind us so we can elevate ourselves to face new challenges. And I think that when we start on an individual level of empowering ourselves individually, it's kind of like when you're on the airplane and they're always telling you, before you go and assist others, make sure you're putting your oxygen mask on first. Yeah. That just really struck true to me. And so I'm like, you know what? Good point. You should always work on building your own house and cleaning up your own house first before going out to try to help others. And that's what I like about this philosophy was that it always had that very personal vein to it. Sometimes it was almost so personal it was uncomfortable. Because it was like a shamanistic approach where they're really trying to get you to find out what is holding you back. Okay, let's just put everything on pause for a second. Forget about, the big global picture right now. What is holding you back in your life from achieving your potential? This isn't about pointing the blame everybody else and distracting yourself momentarily from your own responsibility. This is about being honest, about being real, about being truthful, and about true maturity in your life. You must be able to be honest with yourself about the challenges you're facing that you've been given to overcome in your life before you can be capable of seeing the challenge for what it is on the macro level, and then let alone being able to help address it. And I love this old African proverb that says, if there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can do you no harm. And if you really think about that, to me, that one sentence sums up this warrior archetype that I've been discussing here, is that if you can address your own house, if you can detox your own body, your own mind, everything, then you'll be more empowered. You'll see things in a different way. You'll be living in the moment. You'll be living life fully and truly and honestly. And there's another beautiful saying coming out of the Japanese tradition of Bushido, which is just the way of a warrior, where they're talking about life in every breath, living life in every breath, the ability to stop and smell the roses, the ability to observe something in the momentary experience and to feel aligned with that, to have a resonance with that. I think in our fast-paced, overly stressed life today, there is so much worrying by our desk, I'm sitting at my desk right now and I just see so many things that could clutter my mind and distract me. But it's so important to be able to bring it down to that center, to that still, quiet point, and to be able to live in the moment. And when you can do that, you'll be able to hear that inner voice, that intuitive voice more clearly. You'll be able to then decipher, is this really my true intention here? Is this really coming from my heart? Or is this just mental programming? Is this something that, I'm saying this, or I'm restricting myself from doing something because I'm afraid of what other people are going to say about me, or I'm afraid of what other people think about me? We constantly live in our own prison without even the need for the globalists or the big, controlling interests of the world to have to come out and build some prison planet. We're in our own prison. And there's no way we're going to break out of this collectively if we can't do this on an individual level first. So that's why I really love how this is bringing it back to the individual and that concept of if there's no enemy within, if you detox your mind, body, and spirit, then the enemy outside can do you no harm. And I truly believe that. I feel like the longer I've trained martial arts, the less I've ever had to use these techniques to defend myself. I don't get in fights. I'm not in conflict. I get very good at verbal jujitsu, as I call it, where I'm able to talk, use words and use eye contact and just posture and energy to diffuse situations that arise. And I find these situations don't even arise anymore in my life because I feel like I've done so much work on my inner house that it's not even popping up. So that's something that people can take from this and say, hey, you know what? I don't need to be a warrior. I don't need to go train martial arts, but I can understand that. I can understand that if I detox myself, I can be empowered to then bring about some positive change in the people around me.
So many wise points that you've hit on there, David. I'm sure we're going to want to invite you back to talk, more at length on all these different aspects because they're so essential. But if I could ask you at this point one thing, the idea of looking at the source of the problems or the challenges that we're facing, and whether that's something in our personal life or in the bigger picture, the principle of being able to stand your ground and look perhaps where you'd rather not, to know that that's the place you need to go. You think that this is also an aspect of the warrior, is it not? Being able to face, the darkness, not shy away from it, but to actually see that is where, in many respects, the answer lies, and being able to interpret that. How would you recommend people when they are looking at their concerns? What's the attitude of mind? Can you sum that up? The stance, their posture, their attitude of mind, so that they're not as fearful, perhaps, to look at things that are difficult to address, that they need that courage?
Oh, yes. And this is important because, I feel it. For those that are listening, I'm one of you guys. I started looking at what was happening in the world around me, and I live here in Canada. And here in Canada, we used to think we were untouched by what was going on in the world, but we've learned very hard lessons on how untrue that is. We're very connected. All of us are connected. We know there's something bigger going on in the world around us. We know that, we're being guided towards a particular path as a species, and some of it has to do with just what's going on inside of, I think, everybody, which is a lot of fear. It's driven by fear. And then there's those mechanisms in our society that come from various, I'm sure various outlets that are about encouraging fear and fostering fear and trying to make that the signal that is out there running things. And so it really does boil down to a choice between fear and love. And love, that word love is really misunderstood. I know a lot of people probably do address this, but I must say that what we're talking about with love is not something you're going to hear from some Beyonce video or some, pop culture idea of what love is, some romantic idea of what love is. Love in sort of this understanding is talking about universal love, universal order, natural law, and what real truth and justice is. So love is not just some passive thing. Love is something that is there as like a fire that's burning inside of us, and we can either suppress it or we can let it, really be there and really expose itself. So when you're looking into the darkness, so to speak, you have to bring light with you. It only makes sense. If you're going to walk into a pitch black room, you can try to let your eyes get acclimatized to the dark, but humans don't have very good night vision. So we need to bring light with us. And that light, I love a quote from Morihei Ueshiba. He's the founder of Aikido, the art of Aikido. And he says about the warrior and about this very question you're asking, he says, foster and polish the warrior spirit while serving in the world. Illuminate the path according to your inner light. And I like that because it's as if there's like an idea there that in the darkest nights, in the darkest experience that you may have had, maybe there was some trauma you experienced in your life. And I'm sure anybody listening to this, you've had some kind of challenge, adversity, or trauma that's happened to you personally. Okay. I know I have. And you can choose to do one of two things. You can choose to try to ignore that experience and suppress it in your subconscious. You can try to just run away from it and build all kinds of distractions in your life that will help you, it'll help you with not having to face that and deal with it. Or you can turn the light on and you can go into that pitch black room and you can address that situation and you can face it. And when you face it, the spirit you bring with you is not a spirit that says, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to be afraid. I think that's unrealistic. You are going to be afraid, but you're going to do it anyways. That's a much more clear and reasonable mindset to have, is that whenever you're going to face something, whether it's a past trauma, whether it's an experience, whether it's a discussion that you have to have with a family member or a boss or something, or whether it's something even bigger, like when Max Egan went with Ken O'Keefe into Gaza, and they went in there and snuck through a tunnel and went in there to try to see what was really going on. And, think about what kind of courage that would have taken. There's no way they could have done that if they didn't bring that feeling of, okay, I'm going to be afraid. I'm going to be going through challenge here. But they had to bring that spirit that said, well, I'm going to do it anyways. I'm going to bring courage with me. Courage doesn't mean it's the absence of fear. Courage means you're addressing fear. You're facing it and you're overcoming it. And that's what it is. And fear is that. It's that challenge that is there to be overcome. And it is something that if we run from it, if we try to avoid it, it's only going to build up, and you're really going to find out you can't run from it. And I think that kind of what we're going through together, if you think about it, humanity in general is being asked the question, are we going to face these different things that have boiled up around us in our society and in our communities? Are we going to face them, or are we going to try to be ignorant of them? And ignorance isn't the way to go, because you can't avoid the repercussions of that. Whatever's happening around you, if you avoid it, it's going to boil up and it's going to blow up in your face eventually. So what we're trying to say with this is understand how to generate courage when you're in the moment. And I'll tell you, this isn't easy. This isn't something that happens overnight. I can tell you this and you can say, yeah, that makes sense. But then when, you say you're walking down the street and suddenly you get surrounded by some guys that want to rob you or whatever, you're going to find out real quick whether or not you're able to bring that courage forward to do the right thing in that moment. So this is why it's a process of training. And you've got to be realistic with yourself. You got to try to take this without putting so much pressure on yourself to the point where you're just going to give up. You have to find an activity that builds courage in you, that builds true connection to the best qualities of yourself and allows you to access your full potential. When you're engaged in those kinds of activities, you're going to see your confidence grow. And then once your confidence gets to a certain point and you start to go, oh yeah, I think I've got it, the universe does something very interesting where it just throws the whole bucket at you. And you suddenly have to now put that newfound courage and that newfound strength to the test. And as I've been doing this, even just in martial art training, and I view martial art training very much as sort of like a metaphor for life, right? So as I've gone through various challenges in my training and I think I've hit a certain level and I'm like, all right, I've got it all figured out. All of a sudden I meet that challenge or that opponent that is just that much better than me and is forcing me to grow even more. And people tend to not like that because they like to feel comfortable. They just want to be like, hey, I've already climbed the mountain. I don't need to climb another mountain. That's it. I'm done. I'm good. I just want to sit back and, have a beer and kick up my feet. But the thing is that you're not going to grow to the next level. You're going to stay at a plateau in your life. So this is really telling you, it's calling you towards constantly seeking adversity, constantly seeking out challenge. Not being stupid about it. Let's be clear about that. But looking at life and looking at these challenges and obstacles as an exciting opportunity to grow. There's an old saying that says failure is the key to success. And it sounds kind of like an oxymoron, but it is. You're going to have to fail again and again. You're going to have to go through the ringer. You're going to have to, it's like a trial by fire. In order to succeed at something, you're going to have countless mistakes and a lot of time in, a lot of development, a lot of hard work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in order to produce the result that you want. So I feel like nothing gained is really worth anything unless it's fully earned. You have to earn your stripes. You have to earn that status, that confidence, that strength. When you're working out in the gym, you have to actually rip and tear muscle in order to create new, stronger muscle fibers. When you're born into the world for the first time, it's a very painful experience. It's a struggle. So you were born into this world through struggle and through pain, and it produced what? It produced you. It produced life. And so I feel like when we connect to that natural rhythm of life again, and we connect to the natural rhythm of nature, and we study nature and recognize that it's just a reflection of our nature, then we're going to start to see this loud and clear that we don't have to be afraid of these challenges that are coming against us. And even collectively, when we look at what's going on around us, we don't have to be afraid of that. We can face it and we can grow from it. And you start to embrace it. I call it, embracing the grind, getting used to it, getting good at being in the grind. And then all of a sudden, when a challenge arises, this is just another day in the office, and you're not going to really be in that state of panic where that situation is going to control the outcome. Now you're going to be in the driver's seat, and the outcome is going to go your way. So that's really how I see it, and it's not easy. I'm not saying that it's easy, but it's definitely worth it, and it is achievable.
I like the way you're speaking about embracing fear. It was a word that came to mind as I was listening to you there, David, because it's like everything has a purpose, and fear is actually a factor which is there indeed to propel us forward, actually, not to force us back, but that when we do meet it, as you're suggesting, with the right intention, clear intention, perhaps not letting the mind get in the way too much, and allowing that courage to step up to the mark with the fear. I do see that there's a real place for fear, and especially that overcoming it and moving on to the next stage, and overcoming it, moving it on to the next stage. It's a real kind of, it's not bodybuilding, but it's spirit building. It's building up perhaps this immunity that you referred to before, which again is, I think, part of the equipment or the tools that we need to have with us in these times, no, to build up this kind of defense system. But one which also feeds and nourishes us at the same time, and that way everything is growing forward, everything is moving in the right direction.
Yes, and I think that what's unique about specifically martial art training, or even like a yoga or a form of rhythmic dancing or music, martial arts is kind of unique in that you're studying combat, right? And a lot of people will go, well, I don't want to study combat because I don't want to get into fights. Well, you're not studying combat just to go out and get into fights. You're studying about how to win the combat that's taking place within your own mind and in your own being. So to have a physical realm that you can do a hands-on learning, I mean, I think hands-on learning is the most effective form of learning, especially for children. If you sit them all down in a chair in a fluorescent lit room with a chalkboard and some teacher standing there going on and on and on, these kids aren't even retaining probably 15% or 10% of what this person is saying, because it's not practical. It's not something, kids don't learn that way. They learn more effectively when there's a physical hands-on type of experience, arts and crafts, getting their hands into the dirt, learning about how to plant a garden, learning about, getting outside, running around. And if you let kids just go into a room and let them do whatever they want, what do? Start running around and flipping around and pushing each other around. They start doing what we actually try to get them to get good at doing in martial art training. And what we're trying to do is refine that and give them discipline, understand their strength, understand their weakness, understand the strength and weakness of others, understand the understanding of what really we mean when we say it has to be fair, it has to be equal, right? So these are things that I like to see more. How can I say this? I like seeing this in my own life and in my own experience. I like seeing the development that comes from that physical expression. I call it like the physical path to enlightenment. And the reason we need to do it in that arena is because where are we? We are in a physical world. We are in a world that, yeah, sure, I'm sure it's a hologram. It's there's all these different ideas about what the nature of reality is. But the truth is you have a physical body. It's interacting with the environment around you, and that's the best place to cultivate this understanding, because now you have hands-on experience now to draw back on, as opposed to just having this be very heady. It's very philosophical and abstract, like you see in a lot of these some more new age type spiritual traditions where they want to eliminate the physical, like in a lot of religions as well. They're like, the body is evil and all the primal urges that you have are all evil, and all you need to do is meditate or pray or show up at church, and now all of a sudden you're not evil anymore and you're not, you're more spiritual now. Well, that's a bunch of hogwash. The truth is you are a body, you are a mind, and you are a spirit. So you need to practice in all of those arenas in order to achieve a true understanding of what you might say enlightenment is. So the advantage that is there in the martial art idea of spirituality is that every single day you're in the training center and you're learning what works, what doesn't work, where you have a weakness, where you have a strength. You know it. It's provable. You're discovering truth. You're discovering the truth about whether something you're doing is effective or not. Right? Whether you're in the proper physical shape and condition, where your health is at. You're going to know by how tired you're getting, if your mind is working when you're under pressure. So you're being shown so many beautiful things all the time when you're working in this sort of physical arena that help impact your life on so many levels. I have always taken the lessons that I've learned on the training mat into my life, and when I've done that, things in my life change. And it's just because it's a great training ground for that. So what you were bringing up there was very key. And I just wanted to add that, get your body moving, get that chi flowing, get out in the physical environment. If you're in a city and you're surrounded by tall buildings and pavement and crazy stressful situations all the time, try to take a day drive and get out of the city and go to a park, go to a nature trail, go camping, hiking, fishing, whatever, and just try to be out in nature. Let your body relax and let your mind relax, and all of a sudden you're going to start to feel like, those big ideas are coming back, those feelings of motivation are coming back. You're not going to be carrying around that same level of fear and anxiety, because I think we often forget that we also carry the fear and anxiety of others around us. If you have a family or you're in a work environment or you have children, people are always kind of putting their stuff on you, and we don't really notice it. We just we think, oh no, it's their problem, I just wanted to hear them out. But you don't realize that you're also taking on that energy constantly, and it'll start to wear you down. So by being more aware of your body, being more aware of this energy, and how you're interacting with other people, that is very important to your own development, so that you don't take on more than you can chew, and that you have a means by which you can kind of put your own oxygen mask on again, and then you'll be more effective in the end at actually helping those people anyways.
Yeah, it sounds like the world is your dojo. It's
exactly.
It's the training ground where we can learn the lessons that we've come to learn again. David, you've broken down such a big, vast body of knowledge, or started to, and I feel as if I have 100 more questions to ask, and I'm sure there'd be another 100 more. And what I'd really like to do at this point is perhaps start to wrap up this session, and invite those that are listening and that will have their own questions. I think that for sure will be relevant to the things that you're touching on, because my goodness, we've touched on areas of health and children, the virtues that are being called upon, our ways to activate our inner voice, so many areas that I think would be helpful to develop. And I would just love to ask you back at some point and help us break these down and provide really good tools, really good sources of tools that people can remind themselves of, that they can develop for themselves, and then put that into action, and really, I suppose, be good examples of what we're talking about, so that more people can be reminded, and perhaps even drawing together a sort of new warrior class, I suppose, in order to protect ourselves and our communities from this type of predator energy that seems to have become so abundant at the moment. But do you think we could stop at this point, and I could invite you back at a later date, David? Would that be cool with you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, I would love to. Once you can tell that once you get me going, I kind of don't shut up about it. So.
Yeah, no, I think your passion is amazing, and I feel that it is one of these things that helps lift this whole situation that we find ourselves in. It lifts it into a realm where not only do we feel able to cope, but where we actually want to get involved. It's exciting, it's significant, and it gives us a clear intention where there's so much perhaps confusion being generated. I just find that it's like it's cutting through with the blade of a warrior, the truth blade, if you like. It cuts through. Maybe it's not always a clean cut, but it gives us a very, I think, direct route to the source, and to the gives us direction to the way that we need to be looking, when we are ready to stand up. And I'm sure this is something that I would love to talk to you more about, this sort of mechanism of even physically being able to stand up, to find the backbone and to bring energy into the body. There's such a wealth of information here that you carry. We'll have to go digging around in that, and perhaps do some specific talks about the health issue, for instance, which alone is a standalone subject, isn't it?
Oh, it is. Yeah, there's so many points we could focus in on. My wife and I are both very passionate about the health component. It's actually where we directed our business and our work we actually called our business Health Warrior. And, it's the philosophy of the same idea of raising the immune system, trying to help people understand the importance of having a healthy body so that they can have a healthy mind, so that they can fully express the uniqueness and who they really are. And we live in the middle of a health crisis, both a mental health crisis and a body health crisis. And so we need to address it. And it's going to take some work. It's going to take some courage to look at the true origin of the root factors underneath why we're suffering from this health crisis, and then how we can bring in solutions that on an everyday level for that'll work for anybody. Things that you can do to help improve your health. And when you improve the health of the body, the health of the mind, starts to improve as well. And by giving good quality information that'll help empower people, that will also help them with that mental health aspect. And then hopefully we can implement this on a larger scale and really help. I feel like human beings naturally know these things. When I'm talking about this warrior archetype, this is just one of many archetypes or one of many aspects of who you are. But I feel like it's one thing that has been missing. So it acts as sort of like the roach cleaner. It's the immune system. It's that spirit that addresses things that are happening and knows what to do and knows how to face it and overcome adversity. So by cultivating that, those other aspects of yourself are really going to start to shine through. You're not going to be so beaten down by looking at what's going on around the world with all these different things that are concerns to all of us. You're going to feel more empowered when you approach that. I feel like I see so many people in this movement who have come in to do work in this arena with good intentions and with a true spirit of humanity. But then after a while, it gets lonely, it gets hard. You feel like you're not sure if you're really having a deep impact. And I see so many downtrodden, depressed warriors out there that I just felt like I had to do sort of like a warrior call and say, hey, remember why you're doing this. Remember what it was that inspired you in the first place. And remember that when you're looking at all this negativity going on in the world around you, on the other end of the spectrum, there is also that equal amount of good and positivity and health and truth and justice and all the good qualities that we all want to see. Those things are happening. There are good people out there doing good things. There are good things coming our way. There are good things happening. And we have to balance our perspective to know that, okay, the negative things we see happening, whether it's on a personal level or on a grander scale, there's a reason why they're happening. And there's a way to stop those things from happening, or at least mitigate those things. We don't have to walk around like victims and say, well, this is just the natural state of things. I guess this earth is cursed. Or some people, they say, oh, God has left us. Or, one day someone's going to come back and save us. We are the ones that will change our condition because we're the ones that got us into this condition, just because of what we've tolerated over these various centuries and allowed to happen. So now we have a chance. This is the time. I feel like this is the age that we're in right now where we can really address these problems and recognize how we can, each and every one of us can contribute in this time. So I'm empowered. I'm optimistic. I'm not down in the dumps. I don't feel like, it's all negative or anything like that. I feel like there's a lot of hope out there. And you have to cultivate that within yourself on an individual level first in order to be able to apply that mindset to when you're looking at the bigger state of things in sort of the macro world.
Well, that's so inspiring. And it's truly, I just feel it's definitely the spirit that we are trying to encourage everyone to approach what they do. Use this spirit. And as you said, bring breath into life in every breath, wasn't it? That it's really, this is about life that we're celebrating. And I think this approach, the things that you're talking about, and again, these virtues, recalling these now, bringing them back into our life, will just give life such a richness. and this has to be good for everyone. Everyone here, you know, right. It's not a them and us, but it's going to be able to touch everyone, I think, in this way with this spirit. So I thank you, David, for coming and speaking so passionately about the things that you obviously embody. And I'm sure that we're going to get a good response to this talk, and I look forward to many more with you. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Louise. And thanks to all who are listening. And I just encourage you to go on your own path. Even when you hear me talking about this, I want you to remember that this is my personal interpretation of this. This is my personal adaptation of this philosophy. Not everything you're going to read in various warrior literature is like, you know, something that I personally endorse. You're going to have to sort of, you know, tease out those things that resonate with you. But, you know, make it your own. Make this unique. If there's one thing I've learned from one of my favorite martial art philosophers, which would be Bruce Lee, of course, he was all about, you know, really stressing how this is an individual expression. This is an art form. Life itself is an art form. So go on that journey on your own. Make it your own. And I'd be more than honored to come back and discuss more of these concepts with you, because we've really only scratched the very surface here. There's so much more to this. I assure you that none of this is empty words. So there's so many elements we can go into. So Louise, thank you so much for your time, for having me on, and let's absolutely do this again in the future.
Beautiful. Thank you. Bye-bye.